But staying with health and well-being, what a pleasure to have our next guest with us. A billion women around the world, at any one time are going through the menopause. It's a fact of life for all women, and its effects can be a struggle on an individual level and have consequences for health, for family life, work life. Talking about half the population. Well, with World Menopause Day in mind, I'm delighted that Jane McPherson is with us. Jane's written a hugely praised chapter on menopause in the leading self-help book, Part 2, Thriving in the Second Half of Your Life, which she co-wrote with her dynamic husband, the international business advisor and motivational speaker, Campbell McPherson. Jane's with us now. Hello, Jane.
Hi,
Hello.
Linda. How
I'd
are
love,
you?
I'd love to live in your house. It must be great.
Never a dull moment.
I bet there isn't. Well, you're both such energetic and dynamic people, full of positivity, and you must get negative thoughts every now and again, or have had in
Oh,
your
yes.
life, because
Yes,
they're a fact of life as well, aren't they?
they are. And that's what this book is about. It's about, something that could be seen as a negative thing, getting a bit older and a bit creakier and finding that things perhaps are a little bit different and a lot of change is going on. And of course, from a women's point of view, as you mentioned, menopause. Yes, of course, we all have our, that's what life's about, isn't it? It's about good times and it's about lots of great times. And
True. The
yeah,
only constant is change, isn't it?
absolutely
Yeah.
right.
But we're so
Absolutely right.
resistant to it. I mean, you're a yoga expert. Isn't there a word in yoga for the ability to change?
There's a word in yoga which is more about accepting change in a
Okay.
positive way, and it's the word is santoja, and I love it because actually it really encapsulates everything, particularly when it comes to big changes that are going on, like menopause in our lives. We can choose. We can accept what's happening to us, and we can maybe make a few changes to help us adapt to it and to look forward and look. I don't want to sound completely rose colored lenses through everything, but
Yeah.
actually when it comes to things something like the menopause, it's tough. It's really tough. Some women sail through it with nothing, and some women find it really debilitating, with hot flushes, panic attacks, depression, joint pain. And yes, it's not easy. We're going through as much hormonal changes, going through the perimenopausal stages as teenagers. And we know how much we give, how much
Yeah.
space we give them. So, but certainly from a yoga point of view, yes, it's this whole thing of, if we can accept what's going on, positively accept what's going on, that's the first important step. And realizing that actually what we're feeling is really normal and it's natural and it's okay to be feeling them. So yes, I use a lot of yogic philosophies and techniques to help women navigate this really interesting, challenging, but actually can be a very exhilarating time as well.
It's only now, Jane, isn't it, that we're getting kind of workplace
Mm.
recognition, with menopause cafes and
Yep.
opportunities to speak to
Yes.
somebody else before you go round the twist about
Which
these
is
things.
so important, isn't it?
Yeah, of course,
If
but
we can talk about these things, it's not taboo. I mean, 75% of women, I believe there was a study done. 75% of women between 35 and 60 still believe that it's still something of a taboo. That's a
is
lot.
is that why things have taken so long to come out of the shadows into the
Yes,
light with workplace
yes,
changes? It's
I
women's
think so.
embarrassment over it.
I think so, and I think it's something that I don't know about, your parents' generation, but certainly my mother did not talk about the menopause. It was something you got on with, and it's something that you sort of put up with. And she had a tough time. I know she did. but it was never talked about. And certainly, I think, thank goodness, I believe things are changing. I think we've still got a way to go, particularly in the workplace. But I think that women are feeling much more comfortable to talk about it. I'm talking to you about it now, and that's a good thing.
You had to cope with change, enormous change of the saddest kind, very early in your life. You were still a child when
I
your
did.
dad died
He did.
suddenly.
He did. He did. It was
Yeah.
a very sudden thing, and yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, Linda? When things happen to you, they change you. They make you the person you are. It certainly made me resilient. It made me want to live my life the best I possibly could. And yes, I look back at that as a sad time. Yes, of course. But it taught me a lot.
You became a high flyer. I mean, a real, top career professional. So you clearly showed resilience, but then you changed tack halfway through, didn't you?
Yes,
You got to
yes,
40, and things
yes.
changed big time.
Thing change big time, and this is what life is, isn't it? If you're open to opportunities, and I was in the corporate world for a long time, which I loved. But my things changed in me. I was doing a lot of yoga, practicing a lot of yoga, and finding it fascinating, the whole philosophy side of it, the spiritual side of it, as well as the health and the well-being and the physical side of it. And I had an opportunity to train as a yoga teacher, and then ultimately as a yoga therapist. So that then gave me a deep knowledge on how something which, frankly, I thought was something you put on a pair of tights and tied yourself up in knots. There's an awful lot more to it. And I use my training and my experience to help other people navigate change.
Would
So,
you
yeah.
recommend yoga to women? I mean, and you're an expert in it. Is it easy for anyone to take up, or do you need
Yes.
a certain mindset?
No, everybody can practice yoga. I mean, you can practice yoga. Yoga is not, as I said, it's not about tying yourself up looking like a pretzel in the best, latest gear. I think, unfortunately, and it makes me a little bit sad, that I think that there is a lot of misconceptions about what yoga is. Ultimately, yoga is about helping you be present in your body and calm in your mind, and it uses techniques such as breathing and movement, both together, to help you come into a place where you can feel a sense of peace and calmness. You become less reactive. You're able to accept situations without being so reactive to them. So, for instance, if a lady comes to me and she's experiencing panic attacks or feeling very anxious about what's happening to her physically and emotionally, I use quite a lot of techniques to help calm her and to change the way that her nervous system is reacting. And that's yoga. That is what yoga is. And it can help you, obviously, physically. It helps you mobile. It helps joints that perhaps are feeling a little bit sore, a little bit tight. It can help you in that. But to me, yoga is far more than that. It's about helping you come to a calm place, to calm these anxious vortex spirals that we can get into, so that you can be in a place where you can relax and you can accept what's going on, and then see the wood for the trees, if you like. Or it's an interesting world. I love it. I love it, and it helped me enormously when I was going through my perimenopause.
Acceptance. I mean, it's such a big word, isn't it? Because acceptance in any situation is such a key, isn't it, to being able to survive what life throws at you. This is actually central to all the workshops that you do, isn't it? Actually, however highfalutin people are, or
Yes,
however everyday people are, about
yes.
accepting change is actually central to surviving in a good frame of mind and able to get on with things and achieve things.
It is. And as you said earlier on, it is inevitable. Change happens. we're going through enormous changes, aren't we, at the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a huge amount of change, and we all go through the change curve. It's something that we talk about in you part 2 in the book. About we go through these different emotions: shock, denial, anger, fear, melancholy, and depression, and we go through all these different emotions when we're faced with change, and what we need, what we can do is have tools to help us accept that and to be with it and to be comfortable with it. It may not be change that we particularly like, but it's something that we can learn to be with. An attitude is something we talk about a lot in the book. An attitude, if your attitude to change is grounded and in a positive way, then you can actually see that maybe change is good, or change is good, and that things happen. But this may, it happened to me. Things happened to me in my life where you'd think, goodness me, a father dying at a very young age is catastrophic, and of course it was terrible. But other doors open. It became, as I said, the person that I am now, with my lovely family and you become very close as a family when something like that happens. So I think some things, always good things come out of change, but it's all about attitude.
I noticed in your book and in your chapter that you talk about sometimes maybe being a little more bolshy, and but that actually, although Campbell might be slightly, discombobulated at times, even he can see that it's you becoming more opinionated, confident, disgruntled, to use the words that you use.
Yes.
It's a positive thing, isn't it?
It is a positive thing. I mean, what happens, of course, with menopause is that we experience this reduction in estrogen and progesterone, but our testosterone can increase a little bit. And that's the thing that makes ourselves a little bit more bolshy. To me, I think it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. It means that perhaps we're less tolerant in some ways, but also, more confident in expressing what we want and how we feel. And that menopause can be a real turning point in our lives. As I said, it may be that you sit back and you think, actually, I'm not willing to accept this job that doesn't value me, or a relationship that doesn't respect me. And it makes you more perhaps confident to make some changes so that you don't have to put up with that. And I believe that's a good thing.
There's the rub, though, with all that hormonal imbalance, though, isn't it? And its cause and effect, and the apathy and the sense of, I don't know, being spent force, or that some women feel reportedly, or the anxiety or fatigue or low self-esteem, or disgruntlement within a marriage or whatever. And obviously HRT is taken in huge measure by many in the population, but some women would rather not have as you say, a pharmaceutical sticking plaster.
No, they would no, and I think it all depends on the person. So for some women, they need HRT. HRT is something for them which is literally a lifesaver, and I certainly have clients who feel that way, and I celebrate the fact that they have found something that helps them feel much better, and gives them sleep, and it gives them energy. And there's lots of research now done about the effects of HRT. And again, that's a good thing. And depending on who you talk to, some people think that women should be on HRT for the rest of their lives, and that's fine. And for some others, and interestingly, I battled myself with, do I take HRT? Do I not? I had extremely low energy, a lot of hot flushes. I wasn't sleeping. I was doing a lot of teaching, and I was really fatigued. I was thinking, of course I don't need HRT. I'm a yoga teacher. I can, have a nice herbal tea, or I can have some supplements. And I looked at it. I don't want to be glib here, but I looked at it quite seriously, and I looked at some Ayurvedic remedies, and I looked at various ways to help alleviate some of these symptoms I was getting. And ultimately, I thought this isn't working for me. So I did some more research on HRT and its effects. And of course, it had some bad press a while ago. And that I read all that. And then I read all you can get different types of HRT. And I read all about that. And I think knowledge is power. And I think if we do our homework and we talk to as many people, we have good advice from our GPs and from our people who understand menopause and understand HRT, I think we should absolutely take it.
So could yoga be prescribed, for want of a better word, on the NHS for anxiety and depression?
You have just described my dream, Linda. I think, yes, I'm a yoga therapist, which means I use yogic techniques to help people, particularly with chronic pain, mainly emotional and physical. And yes, I have had many conversations with medical professionals on how yoga can help alleviate symptoms, particularly things like depression and anxiety and insomnia, as well as the more obvious ones such as joint pain, back pain, things like that. I think that would be amazing. There are some countries, the Scandinavian countries, for instance, which they do prescribe yoga as part of a patient's treatment. And I would love that.
Sure.
We're not quite there yet.
No.
There are some doctors, they tend to do yoga. They tend to practice yoga themselves, so they've experienced it firsthand how it helps them. Who do certainly recommend yoga to their patients, and that's a good thing.
It's not 3 o'clock in the morning, Jane, as you know. There's something about 3 o'clock in the morning, isn't there?
Oh, what is it? What is it? Yes.
For men and women as well, stare at the ceiling thinking in the meaning of life and, all the, huge problems that come racing into your head. Just as you're, screeching for sleep, your brain says, what can I throw at you in terms of negativity and all the terrible things you've done in your life, all the mistakes you've made? Let's throw it all in at 3 o'clock in the morning. In fact, there's a whole Facebook group now called the 3 a.m. Facebook. And, if people getting together at 3 o'clock in the morning to say what's keeping them up. But you can't do yoga really, realistically, in the family house at 3 o'clock in the morning. So is there anything you can do, when your heart's racing or, women are having a hot flush if they're experiencing that, don't want to disturb the house or disturb the sleeping, spouse or whatever. Yeah. Anything you can do at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Well, this is from experience. So the first thing I would say is don't worry about it. I think we're terribly worried if we don't get our full 7-8 hours sleep, and if we don't get it, we feel like we've had a bad night's sleep. My first advice, I did a lot of work with sleep scientists when I was training as a yoga therapist, and actually, if we stop worrying about how much sleep we get, that's number one. The second thing is, no, you're right. To get up in the middle of the night and do a yoga practice can be rather disruptive. But what you can do is just accept, first of all, that you're awake, and then just rather than the mind being focused on the shopping list or what I need to do or what I haven't done or what so-and-so is doing, rather than do that, just come back to how your heart rate, your breathing, notice all this, but just notice it. And this brings you straight away into the present moment, which is what I was talking about earlier, and reminding yourself that, everything is okay and it's normal. And this is what happens. In fact, there's a Facebook group at 3 o'clock in the morning. We all suffer from this. We all experience this. So First of all, just noticing your breathing. Just really just come into your breathing, come into how you're feeling. And then maybe you will just drift off again, or maybe you won't. Maybe get up, have a nice warm cup of tea, and again, sit down, notice your breathing, notice your heart rate. And that's okay. You're still resting. You might not be fast asleep, but you're still resting. And that's much more restful to focus on your breathing, focus on your heart rate, focus on how you feel in bed with that lovely warm duvet. That's far more restful than tossing and turning and watching something in your mind that, frankly, you can't do anything about because you're in bed. So I just recommend that, and I do this in my classes. Sometimes I just say, let's just feel what we're feeling, and it's okay.
And the ultimate point of all of this, as yourself and Campbell put forward as the centre of your book, part 2, thriving in the second half of your life. You know, not being put out to pasture, not creeping into the shadows, not adopting a certain way of dressing or attitude or accepting that your best days are done. This is all at the centre of what you're trying to teach here. Well, as well as workplace recognition coming in about the menopause, also there seems to be, I don't know, have you noticed that there seems to be, for a long time, women in particular were saying that in television, on screen, in terms of role models, there were very few women of a certain age. And people like, Dame Maggie Smith and Helen Mirren and Judi Dench and Dame Mary Berry, at 87, was more famous now than she's ever been in her life. They're amazing role models. I mean, there's a terrific programme on very early in the morning, Rip Off Britain, with Gloria Hunniford, Angela Rippon and Julia Somerville, and between them, I think they clock up about 257. They're like the Rolling Stones of TV, aren't they? But that's all good, isn't it? That's all positive. That is thriving in the second half of life.
Absolutely, and I just applaud. I applaud those role models, because absolutely let's face it, we live. It used to be, of course, by the time we got to our 50s, then a few hundred years ago, we wouldn't have much time left. We have, because of our health and because of the wonders of modern medicine, we have the opportunity to live a lot longer than we did, than our ancestors. So why would we want to give up? Why would we want to fade away, as you said, into the shadows? And I think the menopause is a real turning point for women. Given the attitude, given the help, given the support, there's so much opportunity for women to tap into their creativity, to go back and learn a new skill, to start a new business, whatever it might be. I believe that there's a huge opportunity and an untapped resource, skill set. We've all got experience. We've all got this wisdom, and let's use it. Let's use it for the good for ourselves and good for others.
Yeah, all that priceless wisdom and experience, actually. It can't be wasted. It must be a resource.
Absolutely.
Mentioning, obviously all those starry names. That is the world of stardom and TV and film and all of that kind of thing. Not real for most of us in our everyday life. But that priceless wisdom and experience that exists in a massive pool of resources, surely, the big name companies on the high street and everything should be embracing that as well, and letting people work as long as they want without hogging the platform in that sense, because obviously the way has to be cleared for the young to come through, the younger generation. But isn't it more about passing the baton along than actually disposing and discarding of all that wisdom experience the minute you get to a kind of stereotypical stage of life?
I agree. And in fact, in the book, we talk how, wouldn't it be wonderful if you combine the creativity, perhaps, and more of the energy and the analytical skills of the younger people and the wisdom and the experience of older people. That's a very powerful combination for a company. And I think companies that actually recognize that having older and younger people working together, I think would be electric. And I know there are some companies that are talking about it. I think we've still got a way to go, which is why something like World Menopause Day, tomorrow, is a good thing. It highlights that there is all this huge amount of resource out there that is ready to be used.
So you possess a great deal of self-reliance, resilience, mental strength. Clearly, you recovered from that awful blow of losing your dad at 13. You regrouped and went out and saw the world. You met Campbell in Australia, didn't you? You were
I did.
on an adventure there. I presume it was your outlook on life and your joint philosophy that partly drew you together.
Perhaps it was something like that. Or,
Yeah,
yes.
I would imagine
Australian beer, I don't know, something.
But of course, not everybody's made of,
No.
that kind of metal. And
No.
it takes actually an inner strength that you need to find to actually suddenly change maybe what had been a negative resignation of what life's thrown at you and the place you've ended up in, and feeling powerless to change anything, particularly in certain economic circumstances.
Yes.
Is there anything you could say to people who do feel low, do feel as though they are a spent force, and what else can I do with my life? Are there ways to get out there and grab life again?
Yes, I think there are. I think the biggest thing is support. I had marvelous support from my family and my friends. And if we're feeling lonely, it's, these times of change can be really tough. So yes, find a support group. Find whether it's a 3:00 group in the middle of the night, on Facebook, or whether it's a creative group or a yoga group. Because I can guarantee there are so many people in the same situation, and try and find a support group who can help you, who you can share your experiences with, and find help. Find help from whether it's a doctor or a yoga teacher or a dear friend or some just other people who can support you and help you. And then you realize that you're not alone, that this is an entirely normal and natural thing, that occurrence in our lives that most of us will be feeling or have felt at some point, and have advice and have tools that have worked for them. And thankfully, as we've already talked about, we are talking about it more. So we don't need to be alone. We can find information. There's a wealth of information. At the back of our book, actually, we have a lot of links to various organisations that can help so you're not alone, so you're not facing these sometimes catastrophic and sometimes really quite challenging conditions with the menopause.
It's good to be inspired by your outlook on life, Jane, and your wisdoms that you've passed on to us. Thank you very much indeed.
My absolute pleasure.
And look forward to catching up with you again sometime. And of course, Campbell. And may you sleep well. No 3:00 in the morning wake-ups.
I certainly will, but I'll certainly bear that Facebook group in mind.
Should you need it, I doubt it. And I will definitely bear yoga in mind, definitely. Thank you, Jane. Bless you.
Goodbye,
Bye for now. Bye-bye. Jane McPherson, who's co-author of that leading self-help book, Part 2, Thriving in the Second Half of Your Life, which she's co-written with her husband, Campbell McPherson.